Behind the Dish is sponsored by DBAT. Check out dbat.net for baseball and softball products, franchise information, and to find a location near you. And now your host, John Piper.
Welcome to Behind the Dish. Today's episode, I bring in a former Major League player, Cris Carter. He played professionally for 10 years, including time with the Boston Red Sox, New York Mets, and the Seibu Lions in Japan. A Stanford graduate, currently works at iFolio, an innovative tech firm, digital portfolio platform that helps athletes, students, and executives bring their talent and message to life in a digital world. Welcome, Cris.
Oh, thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Man, you and I were just talking off air. We met in Indianapolis early 2018. It was a very frigid early January. I think it was like 5 degrees. I know you're from Northern California where the weather is nice year-round. So that's a great segue. You started your playing days in Northern California and fell in love with the game at an early age. If you could kind of take us through that, Cris.
Yeah, I grew up in the California Bay Area, a little bit outside of San Francisco. At 4 years old, I started playing t-ball in a little city called Pleasant Hill. I played Recreation League, and during my time in the Recreation League, my parents wanted me to really learn the fundamentals of the game and enjoy playing baseball. My father was usually a coach on the team, so in addition to having a great experience with my teammates, it was a great time for a father and son to bond. And even at that young age, baseball was an all-around amazing activity for me, both in regards to my relationship in the family and then, of course, athletics.
When did you start having success as a kid and knew, that you really thought you could potentially play at the next level, high school, then college? You end up making it to the big leagues. When did it dawn on you that you might have the talent to do that?
I wasn't always the best athlete in elementary school, middle school, or high school, but I loved baseball, so I practiced constantly and improved every year. It was around freshman year of high school is when I started to excel at the game. And towards the end of high school, I did well, and I was named to the USA baseball team at the end of my junior year, and that really helped improve my confidence.
And Cris, you stayed in the Bay Area for college. You ended up playing for the Stanford Cardinals. What was the recruiting process like for you back? I believe around 2000, 2001, was that when you were being recruited?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I had the academics to get in, so I had the grades. And when Coach Marquez and Dean Stotts and a coach by the name of Coach O'Brien reached out to me, they the hardest part a lot of the times for the recruiting process is having the grades. So I had the grades, and then it was, kind of what position you want to play. And I said, I'll play anything. It's always been my dream to go there. So it was a great fit and it was a lot of fun.
Cris, for our listeners, I know in baseball especially, academics are so important, as only 11.7 scholarships are currently given. What could you tell our listeners about the importance of good work habits, studies, and having the grades to get to college?
They're necessary. They're a must, and they'll carry you through in later parts of stages in your life. So, I was a professional ball player for 10 years, but then after playing ball, I had to go into something different. I couldn't play baseball forever. So a lot of those same study habits and that same regiment of learning and educating myself so I could succeed in the classroom I'm using right now for my current company, iFolio.
Now, being recruited to go to Stanford, hey, I applaud you, a very accredited high academic learning institution. Were there other schools that you were considering other than Stanford?
So Stanford was in my backyard, literally about 45 minutes away. I looked at Duke. I looked at UCLA. Harvard was actually up there in the running too. The thing with Harvard is they didn't offer athletic scholarship. So Stanford kind of had everything. It was in the right location, it had the right academics, and then it had the right kind of package for me. So I was really, it was kind of an easy choice.
Man, we got a really smart guy on the Behind the Dish tonight. As you were approaching graduation from Stanford, Did you have anybody in your ear that's saying, hey, we think you can play professional ball? Were you fairly confident that you would end up playing pro ball?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's the story goes. So we had an exhibition game with a team called Rokyo Japan, and so the game didn't count. So a lot of the starters were sent home to go relax and kind of rest up, and so kind of the players like me, bench players, and every once in a while played the game. So there were a bunch of scouts to really watch the Japanese players they hadn't seen before. And I had the game of my life, hit a couple home runs, made a diving catch. And the scout after the game said, hey, do you remember me from high school? And I said, I think so. And he said, well, I think you're a great player and you got what it takes. Would you sign if we drafted you late? And this was about, I would say, less than a month from the draft. And I said, yes, I'll do it. And so, draft came, and sure enough, the Arizona Diamondbacks drafted me in the 17th round.
Yeah, doing a little research for the show, Chris, 506 pick overall. The odds were against you. Odds were against you to get there. But, man, you did it. And I think for our audience, the lesson to be learned is, keep working hard. One thing I want to ask you, you have a nickname, The Animal.
Yeah.
Maybe tell our audience a little bit about that and how that applied to your work ethic to achieve such success.
Yeah. The Animal was given to me by Jerry Manuel. He's the man. He was the manager of the New York Mets at the time, and it was for just this constant work ethic and grind. And it didn't matter if I was the 506 pick or the first pick. I would always go out there and give it everything I had. And it was really one of the nicest things any coach has given to me, that nickname, and I'm very honored to have it.
And tell us about the first time that your number was called, you entered a Major League Baseball game, that very first moment. Is it still fresh, very vivid in your mind?
I still dream about it. Absolutely. I was called up to the Major Leagues in June of 2008 for my first game with the Red Sox. That team was loaded. We had Coco Crisp, Manny Ramirez, J.D. Drew, and Jacoby Ellsbury just in the outfield. And that year we had some bad blood between Tampa Bay Rays and the Boston Red Sox. And we were playing in Fenway. Jamie Shields threw at Coco, beamed him right square in the back. Oh, man. And this is my first game, right? So both benches cleared. I'm out there, running into the fray to defend Coco because it was so obvious. Jamie threw at him, and I knew what had gone down before. 3 players end up getting ejected. A couple more end up getting suspended a couple weeks later. And after the brawl, everyone was so fired up. I'm out of breath, not knowing what's going on. Terry Francona, the manager, looks at me and says, Chris, you're running at first base and you're playing left field.
Wow. Terry Francona, a great ambassador for the game. He must have been really good to play for.
You know what? It was my first time in the major leagues, and I didn't know how good it was because I didn't know who to compare it against. But absolutely, he's a great manager for sure. And
you also played ball in Japan. What did you like best? I know you spent about 2 years over in Japan. What were some of the highlights of being over there, and some things that you really missed about being here in the States?
God, it's slightly different in Japan. So I would say the game's are slightly different. I would say, there's more of it's a lower scoring game. The fans are different and unique. So when you're in Japan, every team kind of has a different thing they do. So my team in Saitama, we had flags. So the fans in the outfield waved flags. And if you were a fan, let's say for the for one of the other teams, the Marines, they jumped up and down during the whole game. They just wore all black and jumped up and down. And then Tokyo Giants had thunder sticks, etc. So at that time, just being around this kind of different environment with the fans and the players was a unique contrast to the baseball itself. But the true to the game of, hey, make the right pitches in the strike zone and hit the ball hard, and that part of the game was definitely was the same. But there were nuances that were different that were just so much fun to be a part of.
You mentioned off air before we got started that baseball is the biggest sport in Japan. They treat the players a lot like rock stars. What was the average attendance at the games?
Man, I would say 20,000 packed every game. And not only was it packed, but they were there to watch the game and be a part of it and root their team on, and it was definitely a lot of fun.
And I understand you had a chance to watch a young 19-year-old prodigy while playing over there, who's now with the Angels. Our audience probably knows this guy very well, Ohtani.
Oh, my God. He is at 19 years old, he was the real deal. I mean, he could do both pitch and hit at that high level at 19 years old. I mean, at 19 years old, I was just leaving high school and trying to get on the field on a college team, but he was able to play at a high level, and I mean, the sky's the limit for him. He's amazing.
And Chris, after retiring from baseball, 10 years playing professionally, you outlasted many that came and went during that time. So we applaud you. You want to stay in the game. Now you're in the technology sector. Focus on sports with a software company called iFolio. How did you get into this business?
Yeah. After I retired from baseball, I want to stay involved in the game, but more on the business side of sports. Don't get me wrong, I miss going to the ballpark, but I was looking for a way to transition into the business world. iFolio is such an awesome platform, and I really believe this product will help athletes tell their story and get noticed by college coaches and scouts in ways that other platforms just don't do.
The research I've done, iFolio is a platform that can really help that 14, 15, 16-year-old student athlete really get the attention of not only the coaching staff at the colleges they're trying to play athletically, but also the admissions office to get their attention for scholarship grants and things of that nature. Can you tell our audience a little more about what iFolio does?
Absolutely. It's a way to connect using the state-of-the-art digital technology, and it's real. I mean, the research done behind it and how it's able to connect the player to the coach or the player to the academics is a way that's helped people win scholarships. It's helped people go into college. And then it really connects people in a way where you can have a conversation, really understand, okay, do they need to improve in this academic area or this sport? It's a way that I don't think any other technology platform does.
Chris, to clarify for our audience, iFolio is not another social media platform. It is different from what most folks consider, social media like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, correct?
Absolutely. It is not a social network. We can work with the social networks, but the standalone, it's a one-to-one connection with a scout, with a player, with an academic officer that again, it's very personal and it empowers the student, and it's not a social network. So you can really be creative in what you present. Like social networks, you got to follow the rules and regulations. This is a little different, and it's something special, and I'm glad it's not a social network because I think there's a need for what this is and where it sits right now in the current technology.
And you sent me a link to your iFolio account, and I was able to learn a lot about Chris Carter before you came here to the studio today with a combination of videos and your accomplishments and your academic excellence at both Stanford and Johns Hopkins.
What I love about it is you can really give that executive summary, whether it be an academic overlook of a student or an athletic overlook in a very quick way. And I can do that in a way that's text-friendly, email-friendly, and of course it works well on your laptop and mobile.
So it's not really a social network.
It is absolutely not a social network.
Now, I know you've got a couple small kids back at home in Atlanta. Are you hoping they pursue, sports potentially as a profession, much like you did?
I hope they pursue sports if they're passionate about it, and they learn teamwork, they learn hard work, and they learn that it's about winning as a team. It's not about, performing well as an individual. So what would drive me crazy is if, the team lost, but my son had 4 hits and he said, I had 4 hits. No, like he should be upset the team lost. I want him to learn that. That's really important. I think that sports really brings, kind of hits home, and I want him to learn that. And if he goes and plays professional and he's good enough to do that, I'll support him every step of the way.
Now, Chris, what was your